Hello, everyone. Welcome to the VarsityWA Midweek Podcast. I am your host, Todd Milles. We have a good show for you this week. Brett and Brady Jay, the father-son combination from Moses Lake football. You might have heard that name, Brady Jay, the passing leader in the state of Washington on Record Watch. They will join us here in the first segment, followed by the Coach's Corner with Eric Kurle. We will break down a couple of the big games here in Week 7, including the Game of the Year in the Tri-Cities, Chiawana going to Kennewick. And then Matt Evans, the computer rankings guru from the Tri-Cities, will also join us to talk about Week 7 action. And we'll also talk about some of the computer-generated round of 16 brackets he has spit out. Fun to talk about some of those matchups, including one very interesting one in 4A. Please stick around. Welcome to the first segment of the VarsityWA Midweek Podcast. Really excited about having these two on the podcast. Coach Brett Jay from Moses Lake and Brady Jay, the senior quarterback for the Mavericks. Guys, thanks so much for joining and doing some great things. The Mavericks are currently ranked 6th in the VarsityWA rankings and are undefeated and play the 4A CBBM, their closest rival, Eastmont, this week. But let's talk about the offense you run, Brett, the air raid. What attracted you to that offense, and when did you become sort of fully committed to it, which is something that you're running right now at Moses Lake?
Thanks for having us on, by the way. This is fun. I just remember growing up, I was a high school quarterback. I played under Gary Everson and Bill Templeton, two great high school football coaches, and so I had a passion for the game. And then I just started researching. Timmy Chang was a big guy or a big name out there. He played quarterback at Hawaii. He was doing some phenomenal things, and I still remember to this day. I was getting my hair cut at one of those, Perfect Cuts or where it was at, and I opened up the ESPN magazine, and it had a full diagram of Leach's air raid system when he was at Texas Tech. And I just kind of fell in love with it, all the different options and just the philosophy, using the entire field. Everyone's a threat. And so then we started researching it and, finding anything we could. Then he got hired at WSU, and I started driving down there. I can't even tell you how many times. Sitting in on meetings, and he never knew my name, but I was always there. And I got pretty close with Eric Kurle. He's a great guy. I still keep in touch with him to this day. But anyway, so yeah, we learned that air raid system, and then I've been coaching Brady for a long time and started implementing it that way.
Yeah, we were talking off air, Brady. This is an offense that you've run since the 3rd grade, so you're pretty well versed in it. I think a lot of people just think you just stay back there and throw the football. How difficult can it be? But what are some of the challenging aspects of learning this offense? And then what are some of the fun aspects of operating this offense?
The fun parts are just throwing it, dang near every down, and all like the different concepts, motions. The hard part is when teams just do crazy things that you've never seen before. But then we adjust to it well during the game, and it gets fun again.
You are committed to the University of Montana, the Grizz, also a prolific passing offense. You want to talk a little bit about that commitment, what attracted you to them, what kind of sold you on the Grizz?
Just the atmosphere out there at the games and just their loyalty to me. They were pretty much like the first school to really start recruiting me. And they're the first and only school to offer me, so I thought that was really cool. So I wanted to commit to them.
Brett, you've had Brady coach him for a very long time. His senior year play, he's almost at 2,500 yards, 41 touchdown passes. He's even running the ball now because he's a sub 11 100-meter runner. We've talked about that in the past, but just his senior year, what are you seeing from him as a senior quarterback who's been in this program a long time?
He was just a great leader. He's kind of splashed as a sophomore. We had a really good group of seniors that year, receivers, and so to watch him transition with the players in his class, his friends in his class, he helped develop that next group of receivers, and it's been just fun to watch them grow. He moved here the summer going into his eighth grade year, and everyone was very inviting, welcoming to him, and so they've started working on it since then, and just his leadership, he doesn't matter the day, doesn't matter if I'm getting after him pretty hard or not. He accepts the challenge because he's got goals and we have goals, and it's just fun to watch him in that position.
Now, for those Western Washington viewers and listeners who don't know where Moses Lake is, it's directly right in the middle of the state. But I will tell you guys, the numbers that Brady has put up as a senior has created a buzz. People are talking about that even over here in Western Washington and Seattle. Have you seen Brady Jay throw? Did you see what he threw for last week against whoever? It doesn't even matter. Brady, you're on. I mean, Kellen Moore is a huge name around the state, and right now he's an NFL coach, and you're right on pace to, going after a couple of the big marks, single season passing marks for yardage and touchdowns. How much are you in tune to that, and what's sort of your attitude toward all that?
I'm just taking it week by week, day by day. A lot of it starts in the film. We watch a lot of film every day throughout the week. But yeah, that's like big picture goals. I'm chasing that pretty hard too.
Yeah, you'd have to get a couple wins, I think, in the state playoffs, which I know that this program is thirsting to do. But I mean, to hear Kellen Moore and you kind of mentioned, I mean, that's got to be a pretty exciting. That's got to be a pretty exciting deal for you.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool deal.
We're pretty close to Craig Beverland. He's actually Kirby Moore's godfather, and him and Tom Moore like kind of grew up together, in Illinois, and so we've studied Kirby a lot, studied Tom Moore a lot. We do a lot of. It's more like so. This is my 17th year as a head football coach, and it's that money ball, the data driven stuff. It's just like how can we continue to better our yards per play and all that jazz, and it just so happens that the way we're doing it right now is chucking it around the yard and getting everybody involved. I mean, every player on the field is a threat, which is fantastic, and it's just a lot of fun.
Moses Lake 6-0 going into their 4A CBBN showdown with Eastmont this week. Brett Jay, Brady Jay, thanks for joining the podcast. Stay good, stay healthy. We'll see you down the road.
Thanks for having us on. Appreciate you and all the work you do, man.
Welcome to the newest segment to the VarsityWA Midweek Podcast, our Coach's Corner with the championship coach, Eric Kurle, taking an X's and O's look at a couple of the serious players this week in Week 7. Eric, let's start about the game of the year in the Tri-Cities. Undefeated programs playing in different classifications. 4A Chiawana, which was in the state semifinals last year, against 3A Kennewick, which always seems to be threatening to get into the state semifinals or better. Two very physical groups. You've had a chance to look at film on both. Kind of give me an X's and O's on this matchup.
Well, first thoughts on it. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think both these teams are physical, both totally different defenses, though. First, Kennewick, they're a 3-4 defense. They get in cover two a lot. They'll roll down in some cover 3 or cover 1. They have a great linebacker play with the Cooper Neer kid, and I think the other one's Guy or something. But they do a great job there. Chiawana is going to have to do a good job of keep spreading the ball out like they do. Chiawana facing that defense, the one special thing is they got some special kids that can carry the ball and guys getting their hands. The Sincere kid, the bigger receiver, Dixon. But Cooper Sincere is special with the ball, and Gadino's a pretty good running back inside. And they run a good job. They run the counter. They run the split zone out of that. They run some regular zone. They do a good job with the screen. But I just feel like Kennewick doesn't make mistakes on defense. They do a good job of staying where they are. and I think both these teams know each other a lot. Um, Offensively, with Kennewick, they're more of a two-back split gun. They run some play action pass out of it, faking things off to the running back and booting out and waggling. The driver kid's a pretty good quarterback, and the Brooks kid's a pretty good running back. And then they'll spread it out a little bit too. The weirdest thing is Wawa's defense. They run the mob defense, which is basically stand-up defense, where most of the guys are standing up. They have six up front, five in the back. They'll roll some corners up sometimes and go three deep. So Kennewick's going to have to get down the field in short game and work in that hook zone when they're playing that deep shell.
The thing I've heard about teams that face Chiawana, it's probably a little more familiar to Kennewick because they see it every year, but that's sort of that amoebic defense that they come at all angles. Very difficult to decipher, especially on 1 week's worth of prep and scout team. You just can't really simulate it. What's the challenge of kind of trying to figure out that riddle of how where Chiawana is coming from on defense?
Yeah, that's the big thing because of what they're doing up front. The biggest things I always feel like Bellarmine does it kind of like that, but I know Young's doing a little bit, is hitting things with quick up there. You're gonna gash them. When you gash them, because they have six guys on the line and the other guys are back at 10 yards and they roll up on the outside, but you gash them up the middle and you're gonna get knocked back on occasion, but you're gonna gash them. But you gotta be willing to run your good plays. You gotta limit what you run where you can take care of things. And if you seal things down and kick them out, you're going to get lucky. You're going to get them sometimes, and they're going to blow you up at times. But you got to make sure you take advantage of the people being so much on the line of scrimmage, working that hook zones and stuff, and short game throws, and being able to hit the line at quick. And it's hard because most of these teams are shotgun now. But I still Kennewick gets underneath a little bit. They're in two back, and they hit their two back pro style split back thing pretty quick on some of the things. And then the little flat routes that they do out of that, I think are going to take advantage of what they do with the mob defense.
A big quarterback experience on Kennewick's side with Dominic Driver with 2.5 years of starting experience. Chiawana has gone to Emmett Osterdock, the sophomore from Oregon, as its full-time quarterback. He made his first career start last week against Walla Walla. They've moved Gage Williams back to that short yardage role, adding another a big body playmaker in that stable of running backs. Eric, by the end of this one, what will the scoreboard read?
I'm thinking Chiawana by a close score. It's going to be just, they both teams played some pretty good competition, but for the most part, this is going to tell a lot about both of these teams, and I think Chiawana by a touchdown or less.
Randy Elfalter, the Kennewick coach, hates losing to Chiawana. They're built out of the same mold. I agree with you. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I am picking Chiawana as well, 14-10. The second game that we're going to look at is up north in Whatcom County, all but for the 1A Northwest Conference Championship. Linden Christian, who's number 3 in VarsityWA's rankings this week against Mount Baker. Ron Lepper has been there for a long time. That wing T machine, which has opened up a little bit and passing the ball a little more. When you have broken these two teams down, what has caught your eye, Eric?
Well, like Mount Baker's wing T, they run it really well. They have just solid kids that get on their blocks, finish their blocks, but they know what they're doing. Their running back Bryce Cooper gets out there pretty good, and Cameron Moe. The biggest thing is their quarterback, Toga. I think they need to be able to throw the ball in second level, and he throws the ball pretty well. If he's back, I didn't think he played last week against Meridian. Also, they need to be physical on defense up front and being able to match with what Linden Christian does. They're a spread team. They have athletes all over. The boys kid at receiver is really talented. Mount Tome's going to have trouble staying with them, so they're going to probably stay in there too high. Mount Baker, they're going to stay in their too high cloud. And what I think Linden will do is spread them out 3-by-1 and work some inside slant and hit some guys down and working on the outside hook player. And that's what people want to do against that too high, and also try to press down the seam, run some smash routes, which is basically a hitch outside and a corner route by number 2, trying to work on the safeties up top. Linden's a 3-4 team, and they are too high. They roll down in the 3. They'll get up in a 5 and choke the tight end, because on a wing T team, they're going to put their outside backer right up on the tight end, slide their line and cover the guards. And then they're going to reduce down one of their safeties and basically end up in a 54, 53 look, depending on past situations. The choke technique is what most people do against a wing T team. That's basically control that tight end from down blocking under your linebackers, and then the D line's got to hit read, play down the line of scrimmage, and try not to get upfield and then react to them.
Yeah, 2 of the best receivers in 1A on either side, Jet Ross from Mount Baker, and like you mentioned, Boyce Robertson at Linden Christian. Both teams with big win have played a pretty tough schedule, including Mount Baker this year hosting 3A Bellevue in a non-league game, and Linden Christian had went to Okanagan this year and beat the 2-time defending 2B champs. I tell you, Eric, talking to coaches up there before the season, they thought Linden Christian was the best team, but didn't think the Lynx would go undefeated in their league, because Mount Baker and Nooksack Valley, and you could even throw Meridian in there, are pretty quality programs. Let me ask you, at the end of this, what will the scoreboard read?
I'm leaning towards the Linden Christian because of what they played against Seaholm, who I think is a good football team. Seaholm last week and beat him, and that 2A football up there in the Northwest League. And Seaholm's been playing everybody tough in that league. Linden Christian went against them and played really well against them, and did some things against a more bigger team, maybe all the way around, but for the most part. So I'm leaning towards Linden Christian in this. I think they have the athletes to get the ball out in space against Mount Baker and beat them in that area of the game. Mount Baker has a chance if they control the football. That's when they get a chance.
And this is the team that the Lynx don't like facing every year. This is a team that seems to control the football a lot when they play. I'm going to go Mount Baker. I think they've having Bellevue on the schedule and playing them, relatively tough for a 1A versus 3A, has given them some juice. Both teams have taken care of business. I do like Mount Baker controlling the football and throwing it when they have to. Mount Baker in a touchdown game. Well, that's it this week for week 7 of the Coach's Corner with the championship coach, Eric Kurle. We will have him back on the Friday Night Midnight Reactions podcast. Coach, thanks for your time. We'll see you on Friday.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to the final segment of the VarsityWA Midweek Podcast. And we bring in our weekly guest. He is a regular on all of our podcasts because we do need the voice of the computers, Matt Evans from the Tri-Cities. Let's talk about some of the matchups from week 7, game of the year in the Tri-Cities. I'm sure you've been looking forward to this one for weeks. Chiawana goes to Kennewick. The winner likely will win the Mid-Columbia Conference Championship, although Richland still has something to say coming down the home stretch. What do you think of this matchup?
This matchup's going to be a fun one because I feel like this one is more. I think it's going to tell us more about Chiawana than it's going to tell us about Kennewick. I think we know everything we need to know about Kennewick. We know that they're a very consistent offense. They're tough-nosed on defense. They're going to try to grind the game out. They're going to, make you work for every yard that you get. But Chiawana, I've been concerned with their offense this year. Defensively, I feel like they could go far just on their defense. But I feel like their offense is just too inconsistent for me. And I think that this is the game for them to prove me wrong in that one. If they can come out and they can just consistently keep, get drives going, points on the board at the end of those drives. If they lose this game, but their offense looks better, I'll feel a lot better about them. I'm still not sold on Chiawana, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's interesting. Gage Williams won the starting quarterback job in the offseason. He was their short yardage guy, had a lot of touchdowns. I think it was 24 rushing touchdowns as their short yardage Wildcat quarterback last year. Was going to be the full-time guy, but I just never felt like Scott Bond really 100% committed to that. I think he was waiting to see what he had with Emmett Osterdock, and
Yep.
talking to him this week, it was something that Gage came to him and said, "Hey, let's get me back in my old role." And I think the sophomore's ready. And so last week, Emmett made his first start at quarterback, and he will be under center this week. I think their lineup slots better if Emmett can give them some consistency as a game manager. But as you know, the huge advantage in experience at quarterback goes to Kennewick. And I do like Dom Driver. I think he's taken a big step this year. I've covered this game a couple years ago when it was 10 turnovers and it was just a slobber knocker. I do like Chiawana in this game, but I think it's going to be the closest game that they've had in the series for a while. I know Randy Affolter does not like losing to this team, but these are the two teams that have been sort of going at each other the last 2 or 3 years for supremacy in the MCC. What do you say, Matt Evans?
I am going with Kennewick. I think it's going to be a close game. I think that it's going to be probably low scoring. I think it's probably going to be somewhere like 21-17 or 24-21, somewhere in there. But I think that it's going to be an offensive mistake from Chiawana that ultimately costs them the game.
And refresh my memory. Where is your new house?
My new house is about 4.5 miles from Lamson Stadium, straight down 4th Avenue
In Kennewick.
in Kennewick. Yep.
Okay. Well, the second game in week 7 that we're going to talk about is in the 3A Wesco North Division, the more competitive division in that league. Cedro Woolley, I know you have them ranked high in your computers. Dave Ward, Mount Vernon, coming off a state baseball championship, is put together a nice year in the fall, 5-1. They've already beat Ferndale at Ferndale. You could make a case that if Cedro's probably the favorite, but there are two or three teams behind them, including this team, that's certainly in the picture and could take a big step into really making this a jumbled mess if they can beat Cedro Woolley this week. What are some of your thoughts about this matchup?
I feel like this game is going to depend on what kind of a game that Diego Salas has. He is the leading rusher in that whole Skagit area right there. He's got 840 yards. He's kind of their workhorse of Mount Vernon's workhorse on the season. And I feel like how he goes, the team's going to go. This is a huge game, but it's not necessarily one that if they lose, it's a huge thing. Though that one's going to be next week against Stanwood. I don't know exactly how the week 9 crossovers work, but I think that the 1s and the 2s play against each other, both with auto bids. And essentially that game next week between Mount Vernon and Stanwood would be a winner to week 10, loser to a crossover game. So this, I think that Mount Vernon, it's going to come down to the rushing attack there. I think I really like Cedro Woolley. I like their balance. They have the passing ability, but they don't have like one guy you have to key on to kind of to neutralize the team. So I think that I would go with the balance over. I'm going to go with Cedro Woolley, but if Diego Salas has a good game, then Mount Vernon could have a chance in this one.
Yeah, Cliff Tadema and Caden Anderson, two really good quarterbacks who have had nice years, not turning the ball over, had nice years under center. Seems like Mount Vernon on paper has maybe a little more firepower with those three guys. Jay Davis at receiver. You mentioned the running back, the quarterback, but I agree with you. I kind of like Cedro's balance, and they're a little more of a proven commodity on defense. Dave Ward, I mean, as we know, won a state championship at Oak Harbor. Knows how to get on championship runs when he has good teams. I also like Cedro Woolley to prevail in a game that I don't know if they want to be high scoring, but I do think they find a way to win 27-20.
Yeah, I could see that. And I could see that too. I think it's going to be probably, I don't know. I maybe go 31-21, but yeah, I'd go Cedro Woolley in this one as well.
Okay. And the final game that we're going to take a look at is in the 2A Northwest Conference. Probably the last hurdle for Archbishop Murphy en route to a conference championship. They play Linden on Friday night. Linden has always been a thorn in their side. They know how to defend the wing T. Blake Van Dalen is really has dialed up some real defensive doozies against Archbishop, including last year in the regular season when they were well under 100 yards offense. I can't see that happening this week. I think Archbishop Murphy has too much firepower. Maybe it's it's recent memory bias here, but let me ask you, Archbishop Murphy with that impressive win last week against Anacortes. Linden has had to crawl out of some holes to beat some teams. Franklin Pierce, even Squalicum last week, a close one with Anacortes. So they're conditioned to win some close games. The question is, can they keep this one close, Matt?
I don't think so. I think that, if you even just go transitive property, you're looking at Archbishop with a 30-point win over Anacortes and Anacortes with a 3-point win over Linden. I think that Linden and Anacortes are kind of on the same tier, and I think that we've learned that Archbishop Murphy is on a completely different one. I think that, in all honesty, I think Linden would have to play a perfect game, and Archbishop Murphy would have to play the worst game they've played in a decade. And I just don't see that happening with the consistency that Archbishop Murphy puts on the field. I think that Archbishop Murphy wins this one going away.
Yeah, Linden would have to control time of possession. They would have to have a strong run game to keep that Archbishop Murphy offense off the field. And that guy is there. It's Max Hassing, but he's been hurt and won't play. Linden's been beat up too. That's part of the reason you see in these close scores. Their best perimeter guy, Danny Bowler's been out. Like I said, Max Assing's been out. They're just beaten up. And then they got this team rolling into the stadium. I like Archbishop Murphy big. I just don't see how Linden's going to score very much in this game. Maybe a 30-10 or something along those lines. That's a salute to Linden's defensive scheme and how effective it's been against this team over the years. But I do think Archbishop Murphy rolls as well.
Yeah, I'd say 35-7, 35-10, somewhere in there.
One of the things that Matt Evans has done is he's starting to put out some of his computer-based round of 16 state matchups, brackets, some very, very interesting matchups that came out that would definitely be conversation starters. What were some of the matchups that you saw pop up that you went, that would be a fun first round game?
Well, I'm looking at like Camus Sumner again in 4A as an 8-9. I was like, I don't think it's going to happen, but that's a pretty juicy one right there. And I'm looking at teams too. I think that the computer has too low. I mean, I'm looking at like in 3A Rainier Beach at 13. I really like Rainier Beach. I think that they're a sneaky team that can sneak into the top 8, maybe the top 10, and make someone's life really difficult in the round of 16. The Anacortes Franklin Pierce round 1. I don't know, man. I don't think that's going to happen. I think maybe that's a quarterfinal matchup there, but the computers thinks Anacortes is going to have. Let's see. Oh yeah, they think that Anacortes is just a little bit lower than Linden due to some non-league schedule, but I don't know. I don't see that happening. I think looking at 1A, I love the entire bracket of 1A. I've got Seton Catholic as a 12 seed. We ranked them as what I think they're 6 in the Varsity News poll this week. I'm starting to feel really confident about putting this stuff out now that I'm starting to do projections, and it's not necessarily based on what it looks like now, but definitely, this is going to be something that's going to change, and we'll be putting it out on Sunday nights and just kind of putting it out there for the debate. That's the fun part about high school sports.
I can't imagine if the state playoffs were going to start next week and these were the matchups. You were the selection committee. Just press the return button and you're choosing the first round matchups. I could not imagine how crazy it would be at Doc Harris Stadium if Sumner came down to Camas after what happened last year. Now Camas had a couple hiccups. They're not the same team. Obviously, Sumner's not the same team, but I think they would kind of play that game up as their Super Bowl. Can you imagine that being a week 1 game at Doug Harris Stadium?
That'd be unbelievable.
I'm not only would the greater Vancouver area come out for that, but I think the greater Portland area might come out for that. They might recruit all the folks across the river to come and support them as they try and knock off the defending champ. That game hurt. That championship game hurt them last year, and that they've had to carry that pain throughout the offseason. And I tell you, they take that right now, Matt Evans. They would take that matchup right now and run with it. Well, listen, we appreciate you tuning in to our Week 7 midweek podcast. I'm Todd Milles, your host. Would like to thank our weekly guest, Eric Kurle, the championship coach, for his X's and O's segment. And then, of course, my friend in the Tri-Cities, Matt Evans, as we looked at some of the top games in Week 7. We will be back with you guys Friday night for our Midnight Reactions podcast. We'll see you then. This podcast is brought to you by Varsity Washington, your source for high school sports news, rankings, and more around the state of Washington. You can listen to new episodes of the VarsityWA Podcast weekly on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. And for more from VarsityWA, visit us at varsitywanews.com and subscribe for daily posts covering the high school sports landscape around the state. A special thank you to our guests on this episode and to Carl Johnson and Matt Bueller of the Portland-based band Edith and Axon for providing the music you hear at the beginning and end of this podcast each week. You can find the band on Instagram at Edith Axon Official. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in to the VarsityWA Podcast. For producer Lauren Smith, I'm your host, Todd Milles. We will be back next week.